Self-improvement is one of those things that most of us, if not all of us, spend our entire lives striving towards. But if we don't watch it carefully, this will take us to a dark place. The dark side of self-improvement will make us miserable, will make us unhappy, and will make the human experience even harder than it is. Now, you may ask yourself, well, why am I saying this? How come self-improvement is a negative thing or could become a negative thing when any time that somebody tells me that they're working on themselves, or even any time that I tell other people that I'm working on myself, it is well seen, it is encouraged, it is respected, it is admired, it is a noble cause because it is a selfless act. I'm working towards better myself so I can provide to society, I can give something to society. Well, here's the thing. For us to see it, we need to apply an example, a practical example, an exercise to realize, oh shit, I see why self-improvement or constant self-improvement can be negative for us. So think about a time in which you chose to improve something about yourself, or to achieve a goal, or to work on something in particular. Now that you're back in the time capsule, say you are in a time capsule, you went back 5 years or 10 years, however long that is. I want you to see yourself and think about the dedication and effort that you applied to that particular task, the sacrifices, the energy that you used to achieve that goal. Now I want you to think and remember the time that it took you to get to that goal, the time that it took you to where you wanted to be. That could be, and it could have been a week, it could be in a month, it could be a couple of years, doesn't matter. And now that you know exactly how long it took you, how much effort you applied, and how many sacrifices you had to make in order to get to that goal, I want you to imagine or remember the time that you actually achieved that goal, whether you got a girlfriend, you bought a car, you got a promotion, you bought that fancy phone, whatever. It doesn't matter what the goal is, but remember that moment when you finally got that goal. Were you pleased and satisfied at that moment? If so, how long did that satisfaction, that joy last? A day? A week? A month? Did you feel that you had succeeded and that you were finally happy? If the answer is no, then that's part of the dark side of self-improvement. See, self-improvement is innate. It's natural from us humans to improve ourselves, to want to be better, to want to grow and evolve. We can't stop it. It's just, that's how we have gotten this far. From caveman all the way to modern society, would have never gotten this far if it wasn't for our drive to improve ourselves, to achieve great things. But self-improvement is a good fuel. At the beginning, it's a great fuel. The desire to be better, the desire to grow. But as I said, it can very quickly go sideways and take us to a dark place without even us realizing that it's taking us there. Most of us are unaware that we're suffering today because of the self-improvement trap. When we self-improve or we work on ourselves, we rarely ask ourselves this question. It's like, what are we drawn to improve? Not what we think society wants us to improve, not what we think society is expecting or will accept from us. No. What does our intuition want us to work on? Our intuition. See, because we see what we're lacking. We might not be as socially skilled, so we try to be more extroverted. Or we might not have that fancy car, so okay, let me work hard and get a fancy car. But did I truly want that car? Or I felt that that's what society was expecting from me, or what was going to accept from me. See, here's the thing. We have this false belief that we're not good enough. We have this false belief that there's something's wrong with us, that we're broken. And we're constantly looking to fix it. We're constantly looking to prove to ourselves that we are worthy. So, because of that, we engage in heavy self-improvement work because we're unknowingly chasing self-love through external validation. Let me say that again. We engage in heavy self-improvement work because we are unknowingly chasing self-love through external validation. We think when I improve this or that about myself, people will love me. If I'm not great, I'm not good enough. If I'm not great, I'm not good enough. See, we live in mystery inside our heads, in our bodies. We have a lot of insecurities, self-doubts, fears, traumas. That's where we think that there's something wrong with us, that we're broken, that we're undeserving, that we're unworthy, that we're not good enough. So how do we change our mindset? People will often tell us, no, you should love yourself regardless of what others think. Well, but I'm too biased. How am I supposed to love myself when I feel all these emotions? So what? Because I'm too biased, I need somebody else to reassure me that I deserve to be loved. That's when we seek external validation. That's why we work on improving things that we think that is going to give us acceptance. And that with that acceptance, we can finally be happy. We can finally love ourselves. So see, here's the thing. If we're not careful, we're going to start following what people on the outside think is valuable. Money, status, and being more extroverted, being the life of the party, telling great stories and all of that. And we're going to start chasing those things that we think will make us happy, that will make us love ourselves more. In his memoir, Will Smith said that when he was broke and miserable, he had hope. But when he was rich and miserable, he had nothing left. Think about it for a moment. When he was broke and miserable, he had hope. When he was rich and miserable, he had nothing left. See, that's the thing. We think that when we achieve these things that society accepts, or that society admires, or society respects, then now we can love ourselves more. Now we can stop being miserable. Now we can be whole. Now we can be enough. Now we can be worthy of love. And not love from a romantic partner, but love from friendship, family, anything, that we deserve that. And when you achieve those, like Will Smith, when he finally achieved status, when he finally achieved power, when he finally achieved wealth, you realize, crap, I'm still miserable. I had nothing left. I thought this was going to make me happy. Now, I'm all for making money. I'm all for chasing that bag. Don't get me wrong. I would rather cry in a Ferrari than under a bridge. Totally. The problem is when we think that is going to make us happy. See, we can have both, but one is a lot harder to get than the other one. See, we think that the money is harder to get than the happiness, and actually the happiness is harder to get than the money, because it requires a lot of self-awareness. It requires a lot of internal work. And that is the hardest thing, because we need to navigate our insecurities, our fears, our self-doubt, our traumas, right? We need to feel whole without relying on other people's opinions, on other people's perspective of us, because there are a million versions of you. Everyone will see you in a different way. Doesn't matter what you do, people will already have a concept of yourself. So since everyone has a different concept of you, or a version of yourself, you might as well just be yourself and feel good about yourself and loving yourself. Now, that's easier said than done. Obviously, it's not something that is easy to do. But that feeling of not being enough is something that I'm far too familiar with. And I've been trying to reframe and change that. Or what I've done so far, or what I've told myself so far, is like, I'm enough right now, but I want to be better. See, I'm enough right now, but I want to be better. See, I don't need that external validation, right? I'm already feel whole. I'm already know that there's nothing wrong with me now. Every now and then I fall back into the trap, like there's definitely something wrong with me. It is hard to, one thing is what we think, and another thing is what we feel. And our mind, and in many cases, our mind and our body are not in sync. We can think everything we want, but then we might not feel that positive emotion. So we need to keep practicing until we get to a point where our minds and our bodies are in sync. Because what happens when you tell yourself that you're enough right now, but you want to be better, that whatever goal you achieve doesn't affect your happiness or lack of happiness at all. Because now that is more on the satisfaction side, more so than on the happiness side. One of the things that I realized about this journey of self-improvement is that we focus too much on the outcome. We are too goal-oriented instead of growth-oriented. As an example that really opened my eyes was when I became a runner. 2 years ago, early 2022, I wasn't a runner. I would run no more than 4 miles at most without stopping or walking. I would never imagine myself running a half marathon, let alone a full marathon at all. Later that year, I got into running by accident. I fell into deep depression. Running was my way of coping with that. Less than 2 years after I got into running, December last year, 2023, I ran my first marathon. Now, I did that for myself. I wanted to push myself. I wanted to prove myself that I was enough. I wasn't looking for validation from any other people. In fact, very few people knew that I was running a marathon. Because I knew if I completed a marathon, according to numbers, only 1% of the population have completed a marathon. So that would put me in the top 1% of everyone when it comes to running. I went through painful training, miserable training, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. The race, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. And when I finished that marathon, when it was like a goal that I would have never imagined myself running that thing, ever. Again, I got into running by accident. That joy, that happiness, that pride lasted one day. I ran on Sunday. By Monday night or Tuesday morning, I was like, was that it? Was that it? It was one of the most anticlimactic things. Like, I suffered for months to get to this goal. And I thought that was going to make me feel happy or proud about myself, which I was. But I thought that feeling was going to extend, was going to be longer. I thought I was going to feel that was enough now. That after accomplishing something so hard, I was finally going to be enough. And then it wasn't. See, that's a problem when we focus on goal-oriented instead of growth-oriented. Because at that point, I thought to myself, well, now I need to run it faster. Now eventually I need to qualify for Boston. That is like what most marathon runners, if not all marathon runners, want to do at some point, run Boston. But what I failed to realize was the growth that I experienced during those 2 years of running, or year and a half of running. I became a whole new person. I became physically fitter and mentally much stronger because of that, and more disciplined because of the effort and time I put into this. Those skills that I got from running, I could transfer to other areas of my life. Discipline, mentally tough, all of them. And knowing that I could achieve big things. But I didn't realize of the growth I had experienced because I was too focused. I was focused too much on the goal rather than on the growth. So you are today. You have accomplished today what 5 years ago you thought was going to make you happy, and you're not happy. And this is not about goals and money and all of that. I'm talking about internally, your self-improvement. Whether you're more socially capable now, or whether you play better pickleball, or you play better volleyball, or you are a better engineer, doesn't matter. Whatever you thought that was going to make you happy 5 years ago, you are the person right now, and yet you're probably miserable. So was I. And by the way, this is not once you reach happiness, you're always going to be happy. No, it takes time and effort, and you're going to experience a lot of ups and downs. But what I'm telling you from personal experience, doesn't matter how many books you read, doesn't matter how many videos you watch, doesn't matter how many podcasts you listen to, even this one. if you don't address your internal state, it will never be enough. If you don't address your internal state, it will never be enough. You'll never reach a standard you're pleased with. See, part of us thinks that the goal of self-improvement is to get us to a point in which we're not afraid anymore. Is to get us to a point in which we are not going to get hurt anymore. Sadly, this will never happen. Honestly, no amount of self-improvement will protect us from not having fear anymore or from getting hurt again. Actual improvement is acknowledging that we are going to be afraid and that we might get hurt and do it anyway. See, actual improvement is acknowledging that we are afraid and we might get hurt and do it anyway. See, we think that because our body is trying to keep us safe and it will just turn on the alarms and the alarms in our body will go off and we're going to be super scared and we have a lot of fear. So, well, if I improve myself enough, I won't feel the fear anymore. If I improve myself enough, I won't get hurt. We cannot prevent. I mean, that's part of the human experience. Getting hurt and being afraid and feeling that fear is part of the human experience. Once you make peace with that, you realize, okay, I just need to keep pushing forward. And that's why we think that any challenges or any task we have in front of us, we need to improve ourselves before we get there. And that's part of the reason why I think self-improvement not only can take us to a dark side, but also might be overrated. Think about it for a moment. Or if you think about it, what if we look at it as a character development? You might ask yourself, okay, what does that even mean? Okay, hear me out. Any fantasy book that you have read, any video game that you have played, you always had that one character that was tasked with a difficult quest, like let's say Frodo in Lord of the Rings. And not in a single moment, if you think about it, those characters thought to themselves, how do I improve myself? Or how do I become more capable? How do I get better or stronger? Not in a single moment. They had very, very, very hard challenges, but they didn't ask themselves those questions. And yes, we could argue, sure, that there was not enough room to include that in the narrative, but the point is that they had to face whatever was in front of them at that moment. Whether they were afraid or not, whether they were going to get hurt or not, they had to face it. And also, yes, those were pretty extreme circumstances, but I will say that whatever you're going through in your life right now, whether you feel lonely, you're depressed, you feel stuck or lost in your life, you can't get out of bed, you're battling some addictions, you feel hopeless, those are pretty significant challenges. And those are the challenges that you, as a main character of your story, have to face right now. See, you have to deal with those. Those are quote unquote the dragons you have to slay, but you don't have to obsess and focus on self-improvement to get through them. See, that is the biggest mindset shift I've done and I've experienced, that I don't have to obsess on self-improvement to get through those challenges. See, you have 100% success rate on overcoming challenges thus far. You're alive, aren't you? The fact that you're alive, the fact that you're still here, that means that you have overcame all of those challenges with 100% success rate. And it's not that you have to focus a lot on self-improvement and say, okay, once I get good enough, once I feel comfortable enough, once I feel that I'm capable, I'm going to face those challenges. No, because that moment will never come. So remember, you are the protagonist. So be the character by engaging in the quest, by playing the game of life. But don't feel that you have to do it perfectly. Again, none of us has. No one will do it perfectly, and you're allowed to fall as many times as you need. I mean, at least that's what I'm doing. I'm falling every single day, right? And try not to hate yourself for that. Be kind to yourself in those moments, right? Here's the thing. We think that if we judge ourselves enough, we will get to a point where we are happy with ourselves. Self-judgment will never get us where we want to go. Self-judgment will never get us where we want to go. We cannot hate ourselves into a version of us we can love. I'll repeat that one more time. We can hate ourselves into a version of us we can love. See, we think that by being hard on ourselves, by being really, really tough on ourselves, we'll get to a point where Now I'm good enough. Now I can love myself. Never happen. Will never happen. So start being kinder to yourself, and don't have self-judgment. I know it is easier said than done. Every now and then I judge myself, and I'm hard on myself, because I think that if I'm hard on myself, I'll get better, and if I get better, I'll be enough. If I'm enough, I can love myself. Well, I've failed that miserably time and time again. See, self-improvement can become this never-ending pursuit of our ideal self. The present or our present self will never be good enough. I mean, no matter what we achieve or get, I finished a marathon, and yet it wasn't good enough. My present self that I thought that was going to be happy wasn't good enough, that I needed to run a better time. See, when that happens, no matter what we achieve, no matter what we get, it's never gonna be enough. Our present self will never be enough. So the future self will always seem better. When I run a faster marathon, when I qualify for Boston, my future self will be better. But I guarantee you, if I keep thinking about it, if I think having that mindset, whenever I achieve those goals, it still will never be enough. I will find another way. So when the future self seems better than the present self, that is a perfect recipe for permanent dissatisfaction and non-fulfillment, unhappiness, because the future is an illusion. The future does not exist. The future only exists in our head. We only have the present. It's not that you can travel in time and come back. No, what you think about the future is your present self. Today is your future from yesterday, but you couldn't experience today until today, so you're still in the present. Now, what have helped me to sort of get out of the dark side of self-improvement is understanding that we should be happy with what we have. But I will say, we should never confuse happiness with satisfaction. See, it is normal, it is healthy, and encouraged to be dissatisfied with what we have. Satisfaction and happiness are two different things, because dissatisfaction is what drives us to improve, to grow, to get better, to achieve big things. The problem is when we seek happiness through self-improvement. The problem is when we seek happiness through self-improvement. So, TLDR. Life is hard as it is. When we focus too much on the outcome instead of the growth, we're going to be miserable. We are already good enough, but we can always be better. There's nothing wrong with us. We need to work on ourselves, or we want to improve ourselves based on our intuition, based on what we're drawn to do, not what we think society wants, because even when we get that validation, will never be good enough for us, ever. Self-judgment works against us. We cannot hate ourselves into a version of us that we can love. And lastly, if we attach happiness with self-improvement, will never be enough. And remember, anytime that you feel that you're not enough and you need to self-improve, you're unknowingly chasing self-love through external validation. So, once again, the human experience is already hard enough as it is. It is tough to deal with emotions, to deal with our thoughts, to deal with life challenges, with society, to be accepted, to feel enough, all of that. The worst we can do is to make it harder for ourselves. So that's all for today's episode. Next week I'll bring another guest, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.